I think this morning we were taken from food production to animals, to fish, and now to humans. So the whole food security discussion in this meeting was concentrating on production. If you have enough food, therefore you are food secure. I'm going to show that this is not correct, or that it is only part. It is correct, but it's only part of the food security issue. So I'm talking about gender. I am a medical person and a public health nutritionist. So gender comes in from the gender as a human being, and that's what I'm going to present, not as just a meaning. So I will start with saying what is the important characteristics that impact on nutrition of women of the Arab countries, and then the cultural and social factors that influence the gender and food security, and then the gender role or the women's role across the food chain, because it's a continuum, and then how food security links with its declared objective of growing healthy and well-nourished people. This is in the recent IFPRI publications. I picked it up as a lifeline because this is where I am going to try and shift your thinking to also include that the objective of food security is not to grow crops, that's how the statement starts, but also to grow healthy and well-nourished people. And then the concerns, food safety concerns, figure in strategies addressing nutritional problems of the 21st century, and how can we optimize women's contribution to food security, health, nutrition, and well-being of people, and then the research and policy implications. So I don't like figures, and I will not give you any tables with figures. But, I mean, they are important, but not in a presentation, a short presentation. So anyhow, we heard about the variety. A lot of what I want to say has been said, so I will go over it very quickly. There is great variation in between among countries of the region. And the wide variations exist in the women's profile, the demographic, social, economic indicators, and between countries and within the same country, as you heard about the pockets. The wide variations is not only in the profile of the women, but in the conditions in which they live, which is access to basic infrastructure and quality social services. Commendable progress has been achieved. Everybody, all the researchers, all the data points out to women have made a great advances, but there are things that did not improve that have to do with food security, and that is the access to labor market, political participation, and maternal health and child nutrition. These are lagging behind, and even lately, as you have heard, they may be not, child nutrition and maternal health is not as we would like it to be. Then in the region, the country-specific profiles of agri-food production systems and food security situation differ widely. We have heard across the whole morning of how the differences that do exist. And if it is gender and food security, we can expect that, as we also, it was commented earlier this afternoon, that there is no solution, there's no typical solution or a fix that fits everybody, that every country is considered on its own merits, and also the situation in every country and the role of women in food security in that country with those existing conditions. And as we know that education and health status of women determines really their contribution to food security, it varies widely. It's sometimes high and sometimes low. Now, in a predominantly Islamic teaching, Islamic region, I want to stress some facts about Islam. Gender equity in society is promoted by both Islam and Christianity in the Arab region. Islam provides for equality in the rights, duties, and responsibilities in financial and economic measures, in political participation, education, social capital, and compensation for harm. These are from correct references. And men do not have privileges over women. Women are not barred from public responsibilities that gives them authority over men. Inherited customs, traditions, and social factors can be in conflict with Islamic teachings, and this is what we find in the region. Islam came to countries that had traditions that where women were in a position of inferiority. So these teachings or these cultural practices continued. So it's not Islam that brought these practices to these countries, but these countries imposed and continued these practices when they became an Islamic country. So we do make the differences. So we won't label it as Islamic. It is the culture of the people of that region. Now, my approach to the subject or to women food security, I am putting, this is from the European Commission. It is the whole food chain continuum. So in it, you see, as we said, the intersectoral, the consumers and the health, what you eat and how you become healthy and grow and develop, the nutrition, the processing, food processing, safety, and environment.
It's from farm to fork. It's from farm to fork.
Yes, from farm. I don't like cliches. I just want everybody to understand that nutrition is not one thing, and that how they fit into each other, and everything impacts. And I bring something that I missed from the morning, which is the agro-food industry. For heaven's sake, it's a very important contributor to good nutrition or to bad nutrition. Now, women in the food chain, we heard about food value chains. I don't know about the narrow food value chains, but I am involved with a European research group on traditional foods, and we are analyzing the complete food value chain analysis, where we have identified Egypt as a North African country with 6 other African countries, sub-Saharan, and we found that women have an extremely important role in the production of food, traditional foods, or what we call artisanal foods. The holistic food value chain methodology allows identification of women's contribution, which is what we did. And we need, if we're talking about research gaps, more updated information on their exact contribution. And this, if you apply the analysis methodology, you can really identify it and cost it. Enhancing and supporting women's inputs into the food production chain can represent important support to food security nutrition objectives, since women are themselves the strongest link between security, food security, health, and nutrition. I will come to that later. And I think it draws, that's what I said, it draws attention to the women's contribution. Now, something that a lot of people ignore is that in the International Nutrition Conference in Durban, 2005, there was a declaration accepted by everybody of something called the New Nutrition Project. And you have seen the continuum. It adds the social, which you heard is a very important social protection component and support to food security, and the environmental. Now, this is, you had the circle. I give you a line. And in that line, you have the nutrition for lifelong health, which is what you heard, that what happens in early childhood affects accumulated risk later on, but it shows you that the risk is accumulated. Now, the role of women has been mentioned in hundreds of things. This is the 1,000 Days Initiative. You heard about that. When there is somebody in the house who is sick, they have to take care, they have to feed. And what is needs research these days, and a lot of research is going in Europe, I don't know, haven't heard about anywhere else, is that people don't eat at home anymore. There is disruption of meal times, disruption of what you eat, and there's a whole what we call a need for a new nutrition culture. Food safety issues and protection from environmental pollution insults is also the role of the women in the family. Home-based food production is a strategy that FAO is doing a lot in that, in the what we call urban, how to feed urban setting, in urban settings. And turning food heritage know-how to income generation, the World Bank has done a lot of work on that. And many more are all areas where women can have a role to play, thus contributing to food security. So it's not just feeding the family, if you take the broader sense of food security. Now, measures to optimize women's role or women's impact, I think this is well known. Health of women and their families, education of girls, because if the family is sick, the woman has to take care. So it's taking up of her other duties. So strategies that free extra time, removing barriers to political participation, to enter into the labor force, and to advancement public decision-making posts so that she can influence public policies, involving women in related technology transfer. This is a double-edged weapon, because all studies, and there are publications on that, is when you introduce technology, the woman loses her place and the man takes over. Whenever you have mechanization, whenever you have higher technology, the woman loses. This is a place that really needs research. How can we improve technology and keep the woman in her place? The drawing on the positive aspects of the local culture is important. We are in a very, in a region with strong cultures, and you should always operate through the local culture. You'll gain more. Now, what are the research and policy implications? We need further to develop the food value chain analysis to better serve food security objectives and not only commercial objectives. Draw on the wealth of recently produced studies and recommendations to formulate policies to enhancing gender role in in food security. The World Bank has published its report, all of it. It's an enormous and most beautiful work on gender. So we must draw from it what is in it to serve women's role in food security. And then the analysis of the causal web for the interrelated factors that have an impact on food security role of women. What we have seen, heard this morning, is that cause and effect, this is not what happens. You do need all the programs and the strategy and policy for non-communicable diseases had to go through the analysis of the causal web, the interdependence on the factors.
Dr. Wassef, 1 minute.
Yeah. So that is very important. We need to investigate the existence of conflict of interest between policies of concerned sectors. When we talk about all the other sectors have policies that influence women's role, and yet they can be in conflict. And the main one that I'm going to say now is the breastfeeding. All the global strategy adopted in the General Assembly of the UN says 4 to 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding for every child. You have heard the importance of breastfeeding. So now we have a legal maternity leave of 3 months. How can you coordinate both? And then the end thing that I'm going to say, that's the very last, is the recommendation of the United Nations, ECOSOC, mainstreaming of gender concerns. To me, this annoys me. Because what is mainstreaming of gender concerns? You lose everything. You have the intersectoral. All the sectors, all the concerned stakeholders, and the private sector, and the NGOs, everybody has to come together and think and discuss about the policy. So in the European effort for non-communicable diseases, they have said that in order to achieve good results in good nutrition, to combat non-communicable diseases and obesity, you have to have a forum, establish a forum, that discussion forum, to get all the stakeholders together so that they face each other. This is not coming out again. So I will give you a few funny figures. Women's multiple and interdependent roles are viewed as part of an indivisible whole. You can't take apart and say this is education, one part this is health, one part this is social needs, etc. Don't divide woman. Woman is one interdependent person who does all roles. So we need to go from mainstreaming, this is mainstreaming. You have a little woman in every sector, into programs capable of addressing interdependent gender issues in an integrated manner. That's what I'm proposing has to be done. And my last thing is women in food security. Nobody has said, only this session, we talked about breastfeeding. Women are the first providers of food security because during pregnancy, she feeds the fetus. During the first 6 months, she feeds the baby. She is the factory producing the product that gives food security. And you heard from the World Bank, that if you don't have the mother's milk, you have effects in later life.